Hey, today I'm going to show you how to compile SQL queries to typesafe code in Go. I think this is really great. When I started doing Clojure many years ago, there was a library called YSQL that did the exact same thing, more or less. And I was really thrilled to find something like this for Go. So the library is called SQLC. I'm assuming that's SQL compiler. But the idea here is that we can essentially take a schema and some queries and generate some typesafe Go code from it. There's information on their website, there's docs, there's a way to get started, all of that fun stuff. But if you want to look at that, that's fine. But I also want to talk to you about it right here and show you how it works. So I've got a project here. There's a lot going on in this project, so I'm just going to try to keep it relevant to the parts for SQL and this is all open source, and I'll post a link so you can take a look at it as well. So I've got a DB folder here, and the idea of this DB folder is that this folder essentially handles all the interactions with the database. So we have a couple different things. I have migrations that I'm using Goose for. Let's pull up Goose, just in case you haven't seen that. So Goose, it's just a database migration tool. It supports SQL migrations and Go functions. I'm actually just using the CLI. I'm not actually running the migrations in my Go binary. But you could do that as well if you'd like. So the key thing here is, I have something to run migrations for. I mentioned that because it's separate. So the Goose migrations are separate from the SQL stuff. However, the part that's really cool is that SQL can read the migrations and generate schemas for the tables, which is really great. I didn't expect that to work as well as it did, but it did. Okay, so you're hooked. You want to build a SQL project. Here's what you need. So you have a SQL YAML file. It has a version. In our case, we're using SQL, so we're going to use the SQL key. We specify the engine, Postgres. We can specify our queries. So these are going to be in the query folder right here. Let me make this a little bigger for you. There's no reason for this to be so small. Maybe one step more. Okay, that feels massive, but that should be fine. So we have queries, right? And this query, it points to this query folder. Schema here, I'm pointing to my migrations folder. Again, keep in mind, these are migrations. It's not some declarative way to structure a table. It is imperative SQL that generates tables, and it's able to check the migrations to figure out exactly what those table structures should look like. We have a gen command here. So this is essentially for generating the output. In our case, we're generating Go. I'm putting into a package called DB. The out file here goes to, it goes up a directory, it goes to internal, and then goes to DB. And then you can specify, and in fact, you should specify your SQL package that you're working with here. So in our case, we're using PGX v5, so we say v5. Okay, these migrations are Goose migrations. We don't necessarily need to talk about them here, but the key thing that I really want to drive home is that these are just standard create table SQL statements. And other things, inserting some values into it, create table players, downs, things of that nature. Pretty standard, at least for migrations. So the queries look something like this. So if I grab players, I want to get player by ID. This states that it should return one value. So I can select star from players where ID is equal to, and then this is something that gets interpolated into the query. Same thing with create player here. So this is an insert. These get a little more interesting if we look at buildings. So for example, here's updating a building, getting buildings by port. This is a pirate themed game that I'm working on. You can see this one returns many items. So in this case, we can have multiple buildings that we're getting from a single port. So standard SQL, the key thing here is you have a query like this, and then you bind it to a name, and then you specify what the return roughly looks like, whether it's one, whether it's many, whether it's an exec statement, those type of things. Once you do that, you can come back to your application here and run, in my case, I'll need to cd into the DB, and then I can run SQL generate. You probably should plug this into a make file or a mage file so you don't have to remember to cd directories and you can just handle it all from one central place. But you run this and it generates some code for you. So let's go take a look at that. So if I go to internal and I go to DB, this is everything that is generated by SQL. I didn't write a single line of this Go code. So we have DB, and this is essentially our main export in this case. Well, I guess everything's in the DB package. But there's some interfaces here for execing, querying rows, new this new function that we're using, and I'll pull up a handler so you can see how this is used as well. With a transaction. So there's some options here to work with. So if we look at our models, these are generated based off of that SQL schema, those migrations that we looked at. So we have buildings here, we have factions, we have players, we have ports, all sorts of fun stuff. Yes, this is an ID. Yes, it's an int32. I may change this. I'll probably change it to UUIDs before I actually end up shipping this. But for now, int32s are excellent and simple for debugging. So I've been using those. Same thing with players. One of the nice things too is it does have the SQL right here, so you can see exactly what function is generated from what SQL. They go hand in hand. So you can kind of see that here. You can see what we're working with. We have a model called player. We're scanning into that player, and we can take a look at what player looks like, and it's what we were just looking at. So how do you actually use this, right? So there's a couple things going on in my main function here. So I have server.go. I'm getting a Postgres DSN. I'm setting it to a default if it's not enabled, which is just for dev. And then I'm using PGX pool. So PGX is not related to SQLC. It's not related to Goose. It is a Postgres driver for concurrency safe connections for Postgres. Or Postgres, I should say. And then PGX pool is concurrency safe connections with Postgres. So I'm creating a pool like this, new context, DSN. I have my pool. I defer closing my pool because I like to clean up after myself. And then I pass this to the game engine, and the game engine is responsible for writing to Postgres in a lot of cases. I also have this player handler, which is an HTTP handler. It takes in the pool. This is probably the more interesting one to look at, so we can take a look at that. We have a new player handler. Here's the struct. It gets DB queries, and we call DB new, and we pass in our pool. So we just looked at that. Here's an incoming HTTP request that we have. It's create player request. You can see we're handling that here. So we have a create player. There's our request. We're decoding the request body into this request, handling errors, of course. And then we call H queries create player. So H is the handler here. Queries is the DB queries. This is the stuff that's generated for us by SQLC. We call create player. It needs a context, so we give it the context from the request. And then right here, we have DB create player params. So these exist for every method that is generated, every function that's generated. There's a param struct that gets generated as well. That's the whole point, right? The type safety. So we have this, and everything's type safe. So we're working with strings here, and then int32s for faction, and it's nice and type safe. That's really it. So when this executes, we get a DB player back, which is nice because we've chosen to return the values right here. And if we look one for one, you'll actually notice this query is not one for one with what was in the DB folder here. So if I go to queries and I go to player, this is the create player query. So you can see here, create player is slightly different, right? So it's insert into players, some values, here's the values, returning star. But if we actually look at the query that it's running here, it expands the asterisk for us, which is also really nice. It's also just more clear what is being used. So I think that really covers it. That's how I'm using this. This is a really fun project that I've been working on. I will probably do a video soon to talk a little bit more about it. But to give you a slight teaser, it's a simulation, a multiplayer simulation game over HTTP. And the idea here is it's going to be something like Grepolis or OGame, but it's going to be pirate themed because I love pirates. So it seems fun. You'll get to build your own port, and I guess I'm telling you about it now and not spoiling and not giving you a teaser. But you'll get to build your own port and interact with other players economically, politically, through piracy, and all sorts of fun stuff. So yeah, I will. This is open source. The server is, at least, and I assume the clients will be when I start working on those too. So I'll put a link in the description so you can check this out, whether you're curious about the game itself or just how I'm using SQLC, since that's what this video is originally about. Hopefully this was helpful. If it was, do me a huge favor, give me a thumbs up. It lets me know what you're enjoying seeing from. It lets me know what you enjoy seeing from me, and it tells me what I should spend my time recording. I'm still going to build the stuff I want to build, but recording videos about it also takes extra time, and I want to make sure that I'm allocating that time to best serve you all. On top of that, if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, make sure to subscribe to the channel. There's a bell. You can click the bell so you don't miss out on any videos like this in the future. And yeah, I would love to hear your thoughts on SQL and Go and what your thoughts are. Do you reach for something like GORM? Do you just use the SQL package from the standard library? Where's your middle ground? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks and have a fantastic day.